I have the motor hanging, put a rope through one of the motor mounts, the front upper. Found there is a front motor, but I have it hanging there. When you hang something, there's a line from the top mount to that bolt hole now. Straight line, it's a rope, it's going to hang straight. Objects, the CG is always going to be under that line in this case because it's hanging from this rope. CG is going to align itself underneath it. So if we draw a line, take that rope and draw a line straight down to the ground, the CG is somewhere along that line. So now to find where exactly along that line the CG lies. So now I have it hanging from the back motor mount. This line, I'm imaginary drawn with my hand again, hanging from the upper mount to the lower of talking about the rope. Continue that an imaginary line continuing down that rope. The CG is somewhere along that line. So compare this side to the one we're hanging it from the front motor mount. Where those two lines intersect is where the CG is. I realize when doing this, make sure you take the photo of the same side of the engine so it's easier to line up. So now we have our photos from where we're hanging the engine. So I'm going to use the ones where I have the sprocket showing as well as the shift shaft. And I'm going to use the head as well, the starter and the clutch cover. I'm using these as references to line up the two photos. So I went ahead and opened it, Paint 3D. And going through, took other photos. I took a bunch of different ones at different heights above the ground and trying to line up not only get the sprocket, but the shift shaft, where you can see this one's kind of at an angle. This one is 12 too. But here it's kind of head on, because if we look at this photo, it's almost head on. So I kind of want to get one that matches. So I'm going to do that, open with Paint 3D as well. And when I right click and open with Paint 3D, I get two instances of the program. You can use whatever program you want, but Paint 3D is free on most Windows computers now, or I think all Windows computers. And then it'll do everything I need for this little project, so that's what I'm using. Alright, so we got our picture here. What I'm going to do is just draw a line. I'm following that rope that I used to hang it from. I'm just going to change the color, something I can see. And tweak it a little bit. And that should do for this one here. And just to make it kind of more natural, I'm just orient the image into kind of how the actual motor is upright. So I'm going to go into this other photo. I'm going to do the same thing. Got that. And this one, I don't need all that, but select that photo. And I'm going to Control C. Go back to this one. And then if you go make sticker, you can change the opacity and also orient it and start adjusting the orientation and the size of it. All right, now I have this bolt and that bolt, and then kind of the stuff on the case is matching up pretty well. The head's a little bit off, but that's what I'm gonna have to deal with. All right, so now I got the two pictures overlaid. You can see where the lines cross. That's now our CG. So what do we do with this? Well, I want to mount this in the car so it's as low as possible. So I want that point to be low. And what I can do, if I kind of draw a circle, I can see if that's the center. I can line it up over where the two lines intersect. And what this will do is just kind of show me, I'm looking for the shortest distance from the CG to the edge of the case. It looks like kind of along this periphery of the clutch case, coming up here. It's all kind of the same distance. As well as if it's sitting flat, if I drew a line, I can actually draw a line. Something like that. It's basically the bottom of the case. If I made this line parallel to the ground, then the case isn't going to be below the frame scraping the ground, but also it's that distance from the CG that's kind of the same as this line here. But if I wanted to, I'll just kind of draw a line to show you what I'm talking about. So this line's also the same distance from the CG. So I can mount it like here I was saying, where this line is parallel to the ground, and that's getting the CG as low as possible. But also, I could tilt this forward. So this line is parallel, but it's the CG is still the same distance from the bottom to the CG is the same distance as it was mounted like this. And so this is showing me what kind of freedom I have to mount the motor in the car, where if I need to tilt it forward for maybe chain clearance or whatever, motor mounts, frame, just whatever it is, I can mount the motor and tilt it forward for, packaging, and it's still getting the CG as low as it can possibly be. What I wouldn't want to do is tilt it back, because then, let's say this is now the lowest part of the motor, and if that's, this line's parallel to the ground, it's actually now further from the CG than it was mounted these other ways. So it's just showing me how I can mount this motor but keep the CG low. So I got quite a bit of freedom from here to mount it or tilt it forward. I may have the exhaust come out. Maybe I do want it tilted forward like this to have clearance for the exhaust to the seat back, which kind of runs along here, or whatever else there may be, the turbo or gas cans, oil cans, kind of fitting the motor, packaging it with everything else that has to be packaged in a race car. So that's how easy it is to kind of find your CG of your motor and see how you can mount it to keep that CG low.